So hello again. This is Thursday, sometime in May, the day after yesterday and the day before tomorrow. Basically, I've been spending the day today getting everything ready for a nice little care package to go off to the Baltimore Robotics Center. So as some of you folks know, a lot of the old equipment that I have, I donate to the Baltimore Robotics Center. Basically, it's a project one of my buddies, Ed Mullen, is doing, and it helps teach kids in Baltimore City about robotics, and they do competitive competitions and all that kind of stuff. So they like all kinds of good computer equipment. So I am giving them all kinds of stuff here. So all of my books are finally going to disappear. If you've watched my Eli the Computer Guy videos, you saw these books in the background for a year or two now. And as I said before, basically I just put them there because they were supposed to go off to Goodwill, and then I never got around to giving them to Goodwill. So I figure, before they're absolutely and utterly worthless, I might as well give them to the kids so that they can learn some stuff. Got a nice little cinema display I'm going to be giving to them. I'm going to give them, keyboards, all that kind of stuff. Got some more stuff upstairs. So yeah, but the nice little care package is going off. Because again, it's one of those things you should always, as they say, pay it forward. So when I was a young systems engineer trying to figure things out, the companies that I worked for gave me laptop computers and old servers and routers and switches and all that kind of stuff. So now, as I'm an older person, I figure I pay it forward and give it to the Robotics Center and other good organizations. So I'll come into the office today, because my allergies have been acting up. This has been one of those times. This is like this month, I feel like I can't win for losing. Like every time I turn around, like finally, like my cough and all that has gone away, and then the tree pollen or whatever is really bad, and then my lawn mowing people just mowed the lawn outside. So we're gonna stay inside because I've been all snotty and goopy today. Anyways, let's go up here and turn on the lights in here. And so this is the full studio. This is the studio that you don't see. All the stuff that is outside that little 4x6 square rectangle you normally see. And I'm working on changing up my little love me wall behind me now. So now instead of having all those books, we'll just have all of this random paraphernalia. This is my old billboard. So back when I had my computer repair shop, I had a big old billboard on Interstate I-83, and that was my old billboard. That was the demo for that. Got my nice little 100,000, got my silver play button. I can't wait till I get my second silver play button. Not my gold button, but Eli Computer Guy Live channel should be hitting 100,000 subscribers pretty soon. So basically you get one of these buttons every time one of your channels gets to 100,000 subscribers. So there's that, my first press pass, all kinds of nice little stuff here. But basically, we will just be doing this video inside today because in fact, as I say, I don't feel like I can win for losing. There's that phrase in the United States where just like no matter what you do, every time you turn around, you're just like, what the hell? My wife was talking to me about that today. She was like, you might want to cut back on talking about all your diseases or whatever because it might be getting people down. People don't necessarily want to hear that. But one of the things that I will emphasize to you folks, though, is no matter how much pain you see me in, sneezing and the rest of it, you see that I come here and every single day I try to do a video. Every day I do the grind, if I can do the grind. So my videos may not be the happiest things in the world. They may not be the cheeriest things in the world. They may not be like, oh, look at how amazing everything is. But in fact, every day I come here and I do the videos. And so I may not have the most subscribers on this channel. This channel may never have zillions and zillions of subscribers, but if I can get like 100 people to just understand this simple basic concept of every single day you just move the ball forward just a tiny bit more, that's A-okay with me. And the other thing to realize too, though, is like so many people that are not successful in life, one of the things that they always say is, once things are better, I will do that, Eli. Once I stop being sick, once I feel better, once this, once that, once the other thing, then I will do whatever it is they say they want to do. But with me talking about my sicknesses and now my allergies and all that, and still coming here and doing these videos every day, is, as you can see, I've had like sicknesses or whatever for like a month straight now. So imagine if I was one of those people that was like, I will do videos once I'm feeling better. Well, that means I wouldn't have done videos basically for the last month. Right? And again, that's the thing to be thinking about. Like every day, no matter how you feel, because there's no guarantee you're going to feel better tomorrow. Again, like I say, I had cellulitis, got done with cellulitis, got stomach flu. Got done with stomach flu, got whatever the hell Lewis gave me. Got done with what Lewis gave me, now I'm like sneezing and gagging and coughing. Like you can't make this shit up. And again, the funny part is I'm normally a relatively healthy human being. I'm not going to say I'm like Captain America or anything. I mean, I get sick, I get allergies. This shit is absolutely redonkulous beyond belief. But hopefully the allergies will get over pretty soon. We have here in Maryland, we have like the allergy season. Allergies normally hit me for like a week or two, and we're like, we're in May, we're in that springtime frame. So hopefully they'll come, and then they'll go, and we'll be okay. And we'll be off to the Laurel Highlands and all that. So again, it's amazing. It's not that far away. Like a week and a half, we take off. We take off for the great semi-unknown. It's not quite the great unknown. It's like so many adventures in my life. It's like, I'm going for the great unknown. And then you start to have been to so many places. You're like, I'm going to the semi-not well-known. Like, I've been there before. I just haven't fully explored it yet. So that'll be going off in about a week and a half. And very, 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 very happy and excited about that. So the one thing that I want to talk to you folks today, the big subject that I want to talk to you folks today is, do you fully understand the possible consequences of your actions? And that's probably not going to be the title of this because that's way too long. That's not clickbaity enough. But I'll figure that out after I upload the video. But do you fully understand the consequences of your actions? Because this is a big problem that I see generally in the world, and then more and more so in this modern world of technology, and especially in the world of YouTube content creation. I think this is becoming a huge issue. And a lot of people are going to get absolutely brutalized. And I was thinking about this because it was funny. Back when the whole hashtag Where's the Fair Use thing came up, and Grade A Under A did a video and had me in it, giving YouTube the middle finger. We were having some discussions back and forth, and we were talking about fair use and all that kind of stuff. And one of the funny things, and I wish I could put money down on like my premonitions or whatever, but one of the funny things, so we were going back and forth, I was talking with Grade A, and he was like, well, do you think this copyright thing is really that big a deal, and blah, blah, blah. And I told him back then, it was like, we are going to remember when DMCA was the worst of our problems. We are going to long for the time of hashtag Where's the Fair Use, because so few people understand what Where's the Fair Use is, and they have so little grasp of what the DMCA is, and that there is going to be a time when simple takedown requests will be something that we remember fondly. And that was all of like 2 months ago, I think. We were going back with that email. And why that comes up now is H3H3 Productions is getting sued. So if you don't know H3H3, they are, they're a YouTube channel with I think they have 1 something million subscribers. They do parodies, they do reaction video. There's this whole genre of people who do videos. I don't understand any of them. Like, they seem like good people. It's Ethan and somebody else. And I've seen videos where they just talk normally, like the video where they talk about getting sued. And they seem like fine folks. They seem like fine people I'd love to have a cup of coffee with. But the content that they create, I absolutely and utterly don't care about. It's just kind of that populist fluff crap, right? But one of the things that they do is they do these reaction videos. And so right now they're in the process of getting sued by this person that they did a reaction video on. So basically what they're saying is they had like a 11 minute, 14, whatever. They had like a 11 to 14 minute video that they did a reaction on this person's video. And in that 11 or 14 or whatever minute video, they used 3 minutes of the person's video. Well, they did the video. They weren't, I guess, the kindest, the nicest about it. So the person contacted them all snarkily, and then ended up actually suing them outright, essentially for copyright infringement. And so they're going for copyright infringement, and they're going for damages. And apparently, the lawsuit is going through. And so this is a big thing. A lot of people don't understand when it comes to YouTube. Is there's a whole thing with where's the fair use, and this is why I lose my mind every time where's the fair use comes up, and I just want to fucking smack a 14-year-old in the nutsack every time they get all snarky about it, is because they fundamentally have no grasp of fair use law, and they don't even really understand what the DMCA is. And so the important thing to understand with the DMCA and the YouTube takedowns and all that kind of stuff is the DMCA, and this is what you have to think about in life, and then again, we have to think about consequences, because this is something a lot of people don't think about, is who does the DMCA protect? It's kind of like when I talk about the First Amendment, right? I talk about the First Amendment a lot, and a lot of people get snarky and stupid, and I never understand why. Because the point of fact with the First Amendment is the First Amendment has nothing to do with the relationship between you and YouTube. The First Amendment has everything to do with the relationship between YouTube and the government, and you and the government, right? So if I don't know, you posted a video on YouTube that was critical of Hillary Clinton, that the government couldn't come and tell YouTube to take down the video, right? That would be off the table, because the government, the First Amendment protects companies and people from interference by the government for freedom of speech. So again, unless you scream fire in a crowded theater, or unless you try to peddle child porn. Again, in the U.S., a lot of people in the U.S. don't understand, like, they take our freedom of speech for granted, to the point they don't realize that even in most other modern countries have nowhere near as free of interpretation of freedom of speech as we do. And it really is. The government, you have to do something really bad as far as speech goes before the government can get involved. But what a lot of people don't understand is that protects YouTube from the government, and that protects you from the government. But it doesn't protect if YouTube simply decides that what you're saying about Hillary Clinton isn't something that they want on their platform. It doesn't protect you at all, because that's your relationship between you and YouTube. Constitution, more or less, does get in there sometimes with interstate commerce and other things. But more or less, the First Amendment and freedom of speech it's not between you and YouTube. It's not between two private parties. It's between a private party and the government. So again, you get a lot of people up in arms because YouTube takes something down, or Facebook takes something down, or any of these other platforms take something down. They go, First Amendment! First Amendment! It's like, what the hell are you talking about? First Amendment isn't even involved here. It doesn't even come close. It doesn't even come within like 20 miles of this. If YouTube decides to take down a video because they don't feel that it is copacetic or whatever with their platform, that is completely within their rights under the First Amendment. Now, theoretically, there may be some contract law or something else out there that may affect it, but that's not the First Amendment. There's a lot of people out there. First Amendment rights, again, like with me, I highly moderate my comment section, and I ban the hell out of people. I just hammer the crap out of people anymore. I'm just tired. Trolls can just go fuck themselves. I'm just done with trolls. Like there was a while you're like, oh, freedom of speech, people should be able to say what they want, and then you just see how people use it, and you go, look, I'm not a government agent, therefore ban hammer. ban, you bastards, right? And again, you get a lot of complaints. Oh, you're against my freedom of speech, and it's like, no, it's not against your freedom of speech. That's First Amendment right. It is about me, YouTube, and you. We are all private parties, and this is communication between private parties, and so the First Amendment isn't there. If you wish to create a blog, if you wish to set up a website and create a blog talking about how Eli is egotistical and arrogant and horrible and nasty in all these ways, you can do that. That is your First Amendment right. If you want to print that out in a book, if you want to publish a book on how horrible and nasty or whatever Eli is, that is your First Amendment right. If you want to put comments on my videos that are hosted on YouTube, I have the ability to block, delete, hide, whatever, those comments. So that is not your First Amendment right. But again, like I said, that's a problem, is a lot of people, they conflate. They conflate ideas. Again, freedom of speech. There's this idea of freedom of speech means, and no, freedom of speech means the government can't tell you what to say. Your governor can't tell you what to say. The president can't tell you what to say. YouTube can state what they want on their platform. Facebook can state what they want on their platform. Twitter can state what they want on their platform. If you want to build your own platform, that's its own deal. Now you get into some weird ICANN rules, and again, there's, right. But anyway, so that's like with the First Amendment. So a lot of people conflate things. And so one of the issues then comes up with DMCA and the whole issue with where's the fair use. And so with where's the fair use, basically you have a lot of content creators out there saying that YouTube is in the wrong. YouTube is in the wrong for taking down videos and suspending channels and all that kind of stuff. And they say we want protection from YouTube. We want protection from YouTube. But what they don't understand is basically those DMCA rules, who those DMCA rules protect. Right? And so those DMCA rules again protect the platform. They protect the platform. Because basically the idea with the DMCA is, okay, you start having these new platforms out there, back when Yahoo was new and Google was new, way before YouTube or Facebook or any of that crap. And so the idea is, okay, how are you going to deal with platforms that host user-created content? Because that was a big question. Again, it's a question we still haven't frankly solved. Because back in the day when I was in high school, back in 1994, oh, I remember 94. It was just a wonderful time, right? But back in 94, the ownership, the publishing, and the platform was all done by the exact same party, right? So if you had a platform, let's say a newspaper is your platform, the newspaper was published by the company that created the newspaper. And the company that created the newspaper hired the writers to write the content and do the pictures and all that kind of stuff. So it was all owned by one party, right? So one company paid the writer to write material and took ownership of the material that was written. So when they took ownership of the material that was written, basically they also took on the legal liability for that material. So if it's slanderous, so if it goes against copyright, so all that kind of stuff, they take the liability. So that's why they had an editorial process. So back when you had editors that would go through and they would actually read through material and all that to make sure it didn't seem like it was plagiarized or any of that kind of stuff, right? Then they would take that material and then that would go to the copy setters, anyways, the people that would lay it out in order to be printed, and then the company would then print it onto their own paper and then they would go sell it. So basically the content, the creation of the content, the publishing of the content, and the distribution of the content was all controlled and owned by a single company. And so that single company took liability for all of that. So if an author, if a writer, a journalist, again, wrote something that was libelous against somebody or infringed on copyright or any of that kind of stuff, then the publishing company could be sued directly because they profited off of this illegal material. Well, the problem is you start going into this whole new world of Yahoo, WordPress, and all that kind of stuff, and now you start changing that dynamic, right? So now you have content creators that are not paid for, that are not employees, that are not agents of the company. Even the publishing platform, so much of the stuff gets divested and gets turned into multiple layers. And so they're sitting there and they're trying to figure out, okay, well, how can we keep the platform safe from getting its ass sued off, right? So if somebody uploads a lot of pictures onto this platform or a lot of videos or whatever, basically we know that that's a vulnerability. Again, the more you open up any system,
the more their vulnerabilities there is going to be. So if you own the entire process of creating a newspaper, you can really control copyright issues, because you control that process. You pay all the employees, you can discipline employees, the whole 9 yards. And when you start dividing all this stuff up, you lose that control factor. And so the question is okay, well, if these companies lose that control factor, we do need to try to manage the companies so copyright doesn't get horrible. But how do we do that? And so that's where they come up with the DMCA process. And so essentially it's a horrible, antiquated process, but I mean, it basically, right? So when the platform is notified that a piece of material is infringing copyright, they automatically have to take that down, and then it has to go through its own little process. But here's the thing with this. That protects the platform. That protects Facebook from getting sued. That protects YouTube from getting sued. That protects Twitter from getting sued. That protects the platform from getting sued. But that doesn't actually protect the content creator or the person that uploaded the content from getting sued. Because those people may not be, they are the actual people that are infringing or possibly infringing on the rights of others. Now here's the thing, for a long time this hasn't mattered. Because basically everybody thought and still thinks that anybody who does YouTube is living at home in their mom's basement, right? Basically videotaping these things in a abandoned bathroom somewhere, right? There's basically been this idea that content creators are just these slovenly, basically half unemployed, worthless people that are making a few dollars off of AdSense revenue, but not really anything at all, right? When I talk to people about doing YouTube, the first thing they always ask me is, well, what's my job? You're like, son, I do well off of YouTube. But that's the thing. It's like people haven't thought of YouTube content creators as actually being worth any money. Well, here's the thing, right? When you start talking about lawyers, I've talked about lawyers a lot. And one of the issues that I talk about lawyers is lawyers are expensive. My personal lawyers, start at $350 per hour. Per hour. And there are some slow motherfuckers. It's one thing, you're like, $350 per hour, what's it gonna take you, 2 hours? 10 hours later, you know what I'm saying? You're like, really? Anyways, so my personal lawyers, start at $350 an hour, and they go up. I have one lawyer that I deal with. Thankfully, she is a personal friend, so I don't pay her rate. But I am not joking. She's a technology lawyer. She's a specialist in like intellectual property and technology law. And holy hell, I had her write a contract for me once. And before you hire anybody, before she wrote the contract, I said, look, I'm willing to spend like $1,000 to have this contract written, which was actually inexpensive sum. It was like, you know what I'm saying? Like I could go to a lawyer that I don't personally know and get it written for $1,000. Or, if you have free time, can we just agree for $1,000? It was pretty simple as a services contract, right? Maintenance contract, basically. So it was kind of formulaic with a couple of specialty things in there. So it's like, can I just pay $1,000? And so I get the bill. And the bottom it says $1,000. But it took her like 4 hours to write this contract. Finding a fill in the blank contract, going through, editing this, editing that, going back and forth for a couple of revisions, and so it took 4 hours to write this contract. Right? Holy. So I looked down. Thankfully, it's $1,000. But the top line, the line above that, before deductions, was $4,000. Like literally. And she has a nice life. She bills $1,000 per hour for technology law. Like really specialized, knows her shit. $1,000 an hour, right? So again, when you go to a lawyer, look at somewhere between $350, and again, the technology specialist, $1,000 an hour. And you can go up from there, but most people don't go up from there. $1,000 an hour should be the limit for almost anybody, right? But again, that's for specialty, right? That's for understanding these modern, weird things, technology landscape. And so here's the deal, right? So you have all those people out there, all these content creators, and they are just infringing the hell out of fair use. They are just ass raping fair use, backwards, forwards, around the corner, right? Fair, they don't even have a concept of what fair use is. And again, when a lot of people get snarky about me with fair use, oh, Eli, you're the one who doesn't understand fair use. Basically, if you really want to see fair use in the real world, go and watch, I would argue, The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. It was better with Jon Stewart, but with Trevor Noah now. And if you want to see fair use in action, go look at The Daily Show. Because these are people that put the thumb in the eyes of a lot of folks, but use a lot of material. And what you'll notice is the material that they use, and this is the thing with fair use, is basically the minimum that is required to get the point across, right? So if they do quotes or whatever of Donald Trump right now, or Hillary Clinton or whatever, you will notice they cut that shit tight. They cut it tight. So they got a 23-minute show. And when they have their sound bites, it is, you see Hillary Clinton, a millisecond later, something's coming out of her mouth. As soon as it stops coming out of her mouth, it's cut, right? Boom. Minimum required, right? Well, but the thing is so you go and you look at what so many people are doing on YouTube. And they're just crapping all over fair use. They're using as much content as they want to use because they just think, oh, if it's a critique, if it's review, I can use as much as possible. There's no limit here, which is ridiculous. It was interesting. Again, like I say, I watch a lot of Vlogbrothers with John Green. And so John Green was talking about that with one of his books. I've never read any of his books. I don't like teen fiction. I'm not a teenager. Anyways, but I guess one of his books had like a Walt Whitman quote in it. I guess there was some big part. So if you've read John Green, I guess you know what the hell this quote is. But there's like some quote in there, like Walt Whitman or some quote that he just found like life-changing. And one of the things he talks about, so he wrote a book. So that means he wrote the book. Then he went to a book publishing company. They paid him to write the book and gives him royalties. They then create the book and they then sell the book. And so when he was going back and forth with the editorial process, again, under fair use, he talked about that where he wanted to use like 6 sentences. Like that's all he wanted to use out of like Walt Whitman. 6 sentences in his book. And they cut him down to 3. They were like, screw you, you get 3. Because they're like, we can defend 3 sentences in court. 3 sentences, we know we can take this to court and we can win that. 6 sentences, I don't know about that, right? Something along those lines, right? And so he had to cut it down. He said it was a very sad thing with writing his book. He was not able to use the full, really that full 6 sentences would have done something. But this is what a lot of the YouTube content creators don't realize, is that, like I say, this whole idea of fair use is you're supposed to use the minimum that is required in order to get the point across. Again, the criticism, the critique, the review, whatever. And then the other big thing with fair use that a lot of people don't realize is that fair use, one, it's only in the United States. Well, we have our own special fair use things, and every country is different. But then also with fair use, there is no written in stone definition of what fair use is. Is fair use 3 sentences? Is fair use 6 sentences? Is fair use a paragraph? Again, an important thing with that whole John Green thing is 3 sentences or whatever it was is what the publishing company felt they could defend in court. And that's what it comes to. Since there's no set definition to what fair use is, it really is about what the courts decide. And so one of the big things that you want to do with fair use, whenever you're going to be doing fair use, is I would argue you want to be so far away from the line that it's not worth the other side spending $10,000, $20,000 to take you to court. Because again, if they take you to court and they lose, then they're out $20,000. So if it's, you know what I'm saying? If you know you have fair use, if fair use is a known doctrine, and then you can show your 65-year-old grandma the thing that you did, and she says, yeah, that's fair use, then you know you're pretty safe. Whereas if you start using so much that it becomes a gray area, your 25-year-old friend says it's fair use, but your 65-year-old grandma says it's not fair use, but your 80-year-old grandpa says, well, fuck them all, it is fair use, right? If you look at it and nobody can really decide, that's where it gets into a gray area, and then that's where you can go and you can get caught up and brought to court. Because again, if it's as close to the definition as possible, lawyers cost money. So basically, if they think that they're going to take it to court, and there's a good chance that they could lose, they're not going to take it to court. Whereas if they take it to court and say, no, that's a pretty big gray area. Basically, if we can argue our point well enough that we can win, then you're screwed. And again, I've known a lot of lawyers, and that's the whole thing. Is basically, it's a court of law, not a court of justice. And this is what the fucking lawyers say. It's like, oh, anyways, I should have been a lawyer. I really think about that. Like sometimes I really think about like back when I was 23, I should have become a lawyer. I would have been a good lawyer. But anyways, so the first thing is, like I say, with this whole fair use doctrine is people are just crapping all over it, left and right. But then you sit there and you think about it and you're like, well, but that doesn't make sense, Eli. If you say, well, if you cut it close, that means they probably want to take you to court because they have to risk losing money. So if these people have been crapping all over fair use for so long, then why haven't they been taken to court? Well, that goes back to that whole money thing. Again, $350 to $1,000 per hour for a lawyer. And the thing is if you're going to take somebody to court, it needs to be worthwhile. So not only do you have to recoup the $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, however much money you spend for your lawyers, but then it also has to be worthwhile. And so if you think that all these YouTube content creators basically barely have a pot to piss in, then there's not going to be any reason to take them to court. A long time ago, I got sued for $500,000. I got sued for $500,000. I got into a car accident. It was one of those car accidents where there's a massive pile up. One person hit another person, hit another person, hit another person, hit another person. But the way that like U.S. law works as far as insurance and suing people goes is you don't sue the person that started the accident. Everybody has to sue like whoever hit them type of deal. So like the person I hit sues me, the semi-truck that hit me, I sue them. Anyways, right? So this guy goes and he goes to sue me for $500,000, and I remember getting this piece of this whatever from whatever. It's like fucking hell, $500,000. So I was like 18 years old at the time. I had like $1,000 in my bank account. I'm like, what the hell am I gonna do? How the hell, if I lose this, would I ever spend be able to pay off $500,000? And I remember my landlady at the time, she looked at it and she was like, holy crap. And she was like, well, Eli, how much money do you have in your bank account? I was like, I don't know, like $1,000. She says, Eli, don't worry about it. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you can't sue a turnip. I was like, what? She's like, you're a turnip. Eli, you've got $1,000. You don't have $500,000 to get sued for. So therefore, they can ask for whatever the hell they want, but you don't got the money to give it to them, right? Even if they won that court case, you don't got $500,000, and right, you're 18 years old. It'll be a long time before you ever get that kind of money. And so it was interesting then. So they ended up suing my insurance company. And again, the guy sued me for $500,000 and accepted an $18,000 payout for my insurance company. That's a bit of a difference, right? If it was like you sued me for like $500,000 and like accepted like $450 for my insurance company, be like, oh, okay. But like, how do you sue somebody for $500,000 and then accept $18,000 from the insurance company? But anyways, right? So that was the thing. There was no money. So I was actually safe in this whole lawsuit process simply because even if the guy had won, I didn't have $500,000 to give them, right? And so that's where you look with all these people like crapping over fair use and crapping on a lot of things is, it's been considered for a long time that nobody and no YouTube content creator, basically YouTube content creators are a whole herd of turnips. And so there was no point in actually suing them because you would, even if you won the court case, you wouldn't recoup any of your money. This is important. Like I had a friend of mine who had an HVAC system put into his house, and the company totally screwed it up. Totally fucking screwed, just screwed it up. And again, this is how laws work and the lawsuits work in the real world. And so basically, my friend took them to court, spent $20,000 to take them to court, won the case. But here's the thing, right? He had hired an LLC. And an LLC, under the eyes of the law, is his own individual human being. So when the company had gotten sued, essentially the owner of the company legally drained the money out of the company. So that when my friend sued them and won, the company had no more money left, went bankrupt. And so even though my friend had won, he got no money and still had to pay the $20,000 for his lawyers. Right, again, real world, this is how it works. All right, so if you go around and you figure all these YouTube content creators are basically turnips, they don't have any money, then it's not even worth suing them. It's not worth bringing up court cases. It's not even worth calling your lawyer just to send a cease and desist. Because again, if I call my lawyer to send somebody a cease and desist, that's going to cost me $350. So it's like, is it really worth the time and energy? Is it really worth the money? Screw it, right? But here's the thing, as time has gone by, we now see the PewDiePies of the world who made $10 million last year. We now see the Fine brothers who have like 40 or 50 employees. We still see Philip DeFranco who has 10 employees. We start to see more and more of these content creators on YouTube, not just making a living, but making millions of dollars. So the thing is now as more and more of these people are becoming successful, they are now becoming more and more legitimate targets, however you define legitimate targets for people going after them for lawsuits. Because so now if you look at it and you say, okay, I know that the Fine brothers have 8 million subscribers or 13 million subscribers, and they have 40 employees, they say, 40 employees. Then somebody with 2 million subscribers, again, should have a decent amount of money. So you go after them as a target. And so one of the things that I'd be saying with a lot of people is I think there's a lot of this idea that simply because nobody has disciplined you, simply because you haven't seen any consequences up until this point, that doesn't mean that you will not become a target in the future. Right? Because that's the issue, is people say, well, look at it, up until this point, we have been crapping over fair use. We have been basically making up the rules of fair use as we see fit. Nothing to do with reality. Nothing has happened to us. So therefore, our interpretation of the rules are A-okay. When in reality, it's not that the interpretation of the rules are A-okay. It's that that basically nobody's decided to go after those people because it hasn't been worth their time or effort or energy. Right? Now that it's worth the time or effort and energy, now you have people starting to sue. So was it Robbie Williams? Rob Williams, whatever. He just got sued for, I think it was like $4 million. I think they settled that out of court, but that was only like a couple of months ago. Now you have like H3H3, and they're saying their defense in this lawsuit will cost them at least $100,000, and that's even if they win. Right? And you're starting to see more and more of these legal issues pop up as the platform becomes more mature. And again, as I always I talk about that, with the whole thing with the Fine brothers trying to trademark React, and whether or not the government should have allowed them to trademark React is a side issue. But the fact that they did try to do that again, it's fine if everybody screams about it, but that was just simple, normal business practice. And so the issue is as things start to become more mainstream, as things start to become more normal, then you start running into all of the issues that you have with normal businesses. So, this is like one of the things with Bitcoin. So one of the reasons everybody likes Bitcoin is because it's so unregulated. There's no regulation with it. Basically, there's no fees. There's no this. There's no that. There's no the other thing. Well, the issue that you run into, so if you decide to invest heavily in Bitcoin, and you start to really build up something in Bitcoin, the issue is that there's regulations and fees and all those kinds of things on normal money transfers for a reason. Again, whether or not you believe that the government should be as strict with money laundering as it is, the fact of the matter is all major governments care about money laundering. And so basically they focused on US dollars and euros and renminbi or whatever for a long time because that was what money was. So if money is these common currencies, then you crack down on banks, and then you crack down on credit cards, and you crack down on PayPal, and you crack down on all these normal money transferring processes. Well, then somebody comes up with a new type of currency, Bitcoin, which entirely sidesteps all of these other currencies that have been out there. And they go, look, there's no regulations on this. There's no fees on this. There's none of that. That's why you should use Bitcoin. And so you go out there and you start using Bitcoin. And for a long time, it's working really great. And a long time, it's working really wonderful. Because again, it's flying under the radar of the governments. It's flying under the radar of regulators because nobody cares. Okay, it's a bunch of kids out there basically trading World of Warcraft money. What the hell does anybody care? Until, a Bitcoin gets up to be worth $1,200 per Bitcoin, and lots of Chinese people start dumping money into Bitcoin, and then all of a sudden, governments start getting into the picture, because again, they're worried about regulating currencies. And if Bitcoin is now a legitimate currency, then that's something to be regulated. And that's where there's a lot of Bitcoin companies here in the United States that are now having to deal with like the attorney generals and basically with like this currency transaction. The New York Attorney General has been really, really harsh on this. I guess since they have New York City and they've got the stock exchange there, they're really big into financial stuff. But they're starting to run into all these financial laws and rules and regulations because, surprise, they are a financial instrument now. Well, here's the issue. If you've built up your business on the idea that Bitcoin is going to be free and easy to use and non-regulated, what happens with your business model when all of a sudden the government steps in and says, no, you're going to be regulated now. You are a financial institution. And again, that's where some of these folks are getting into trouble, like with money laundering laws. Because if you transfer currencies between different parties, you have to verify that the parties aren't using these for illegal transactions. And again, when people thought it was World of Warcraft money, nobody cared. Now that it's seen as real money, the government can go back and look back at your records over multiple years and ask what's going on. So when you accepted $50,000 to turn into Bitcoins back in 2013, how did you verify that the person that you were taking the money from wasn't a drug dealer? Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? He just bought Bitcoin from me. Yes, but he gave you money to buy currency, whatever, and therefore under X, Y, or Z laws, that means that you are required to check on these things. Right? But there's this idea that if you're in this weird, funky world, a new world of like technology and all that kind of stuff, that these rules don't apply to you at all. This came up with somebody that sent me an email a while ago. And I really do hope that the person really thinks twice about what they're doing. As again, it goes into one of these things with modern rules and all that kind of stuff. And if you look at what they're doing, they're blatantly just trashing. And the question that then comes up is, it's like, okay, if you've been flying under the radar this long, Do you feel confident that you will always be able to do that? That's one of the things that you should be thinking about with your career and with your business. There's a lot of people out there with this whole get rich quick philosophy, which is stupid. Again, this hacker ethos or whatever. Right? The issue that you run into this, when you're 2 months off of being 40, you start to see this, is time goes by rather quickly, right? And so if you hack your way to success, the problem is that any of these hacks or whatever are really only going to be functional for like a year or two, 3, maybe 5. The problem is that time goes by very quickly. And so if you build your business, if you build your career around basically just skirting around rules in such a way that it's probably not legitimate, but if you read the law as such, and if it's not worth suing you, then you should be fine. The issue is what happens when somebody comes and actually hammers you in the future. Again, like with YouTube. I mean, I talk about these YouTubes and videos a lot. And a lot of people feel like I'm not really a technology professional anymore. I'm a YouTube professional. But I like using YouTube because it's a platform most of us understand, and we grasp a lot of these concepts. And so, like for me, when I built this content creation business, again, I built all of this as a business 6.5 years ago, October and November of 2009, when I was building this. I was building this as a business, right? I wasn't like PewDiePie. I wish I was like PewDiePie. I wasn't like so many of these people that just wanted to speak their mind and tell the world something, and then they started making money. I mean, like I said, I started, originally failed, basically as a business. And so for me, when I was looking at this way back then, I actually read a lot of the rules on copyright and fair use and all that kind of stuff. I made sure that educational content and the content that I was creating was under that, because I knew at the time, back in 2009, like when I start creating all this content, I had to create a lot of content from the get-go. Again, in like a year, I created 90 or 100 videos, basically. I had to push out a lot of content. And so I knew when I was creating this content that most people wouldn't even know that I existed, right? I knew that I was creating all this content that I wouldn't show up on anybody's radar for a long time. But what I was worried about when it comes to copyright and all that kind of stuff is what happens when I do show up on people's radar, right? So I go through and I bust my ass for a year or two. I create all this content. Then I start making money off of it. What I don't want to have happen at year 4 is to have some lawsuit and get sued by somebody. And even if I don't financially lose a lot of money, simply be told that I have to remove half or more of my course catalog. Right? Imagine like if I put up, 500 videos and then I get, something from a lawyer that states those videos are infringing Microsoft rights or something. And then I go to my lawyer, which I pay $350 an hour, and say, what the hell is this about? And then my lawyer looks at it and goes, yeah, you need to take down those 250 videos. Right? So when I built this, right, that was a kind of thing that I was thinking about to make sure that everything was solid under fair use, especially, I say, for these educational purposes and all that kind of stuff. And so that it was all legit, because I was thinking about that, going into the future. And I see what a lot of these people do is they don't think about that kind of stuff. And then when fair use comes up, the question then is how much of your catalog is open for possible lawsuits. Right? So if you can get sued, so if H3H3 can get sued over their 3 minutes worth of clips, who else can get sued over 3 minutes worth of clips or 5 minutes worth of clips? Again, I saw that with Nostalgia Critic. Nostalgia Critic was fair use. And then I looked at his video, and again, a 30-minute video had like 15 minutes of movie footage. Like, it would be an hour-and-a-half movie. He would do 30-minute video about the hour-and-a-half movie, and in that 30-minute video, there would be 15 minutes of video footage. And you're like, how do you ever claim that that's going to be fair use? And then again, like I say, what happens in the future when you get hammered for that? And so that's where, if you look at my content, whether it's for Eli the Computer Guy, everything there is purely under educational. Again, you can't, a lot of people try to get snarky and snotty with it, but you can't. I mean, it's showing you screenshots, and it's showing you, the Microsoft, whatever. This is how you set up Active Directory. That is purely educational. You don't go beyond that. If you look at Eli Computer Guy Live, again, the question and answer, you folks send me questions to be answered on the show. Therefore, that's a-okay fair use, no matter how snarky or nasty I am. Again, and then even here, some of this I do question. It's not that I worry about fair use here. It's more that I worry about algorithms. So like if I'm walking down the street, and there's like music playing in the background, Lord help me if an algorithm hits that. But everything is completely legit by fair use, because I don't want to have to worry about that. Again, if I am building up Fail Normal, so Fail Normal is making me a whopping $200 per month right now. Yay! Right? I'm spending a lot of time, I'm spending a lot of energy, and I'm spending a lot of money. Have I told you about Patreon? Have you seen my Patreon account? Spending a lot of money trying to build this damn thing and hopefully be able to make money off of it again, and that's investment. So going to Thailand cost me money, going away for a month cost me money, going away for another month and a half cost me money, all of this stuff, right? And so right now I'm making $200 a month. $200 a month doesn't cover anything. Like literally, I filled up the tank again. My truck takes a 24-gallon tank at $2.30 per gallon right now, so it was like $50 or whatever to fill it up. So basically $200 per month is four tanks of gas, and you burn through gas really quick when you do a travel trailer, right? So if I'm going through and I am building this thing up, the last thing in the world I want is that first month when I make $5,000 or $6,000 off of this to then get hit with copyright, real legitimate copyright issues from YouTube or from somebody else, and start getting sued over this, right? When I build this up, I want to make sure that everything is legitimate so that I can stand behind everything that's there. So even if YouTube screws me, I can take everything over to Amazon, or I can take everything over to I think it's SVC I found. I can take it over to some other platform, and I know I'm legitimate, even if YouTube decides to screw me. Where a lot of these folks, they're not thinking about any of that kind of stuff. And so, what happens, again, if you do get sued, right? And beyond that, there's all these things with like licenses and all that kind of stuff. So like a lot of people try to skirt around like licensing issues. Again, this whole idea of using pirated software or whatever for businesses. And the important thing to be thinking about is do you want to worry about your company getting hammered sometime in the future? So I saw that. I saw one of the local computer repair shops disappear overnight. And I was talking with somebody, and I was like, what happened to that computer repair shop? It had been there a few years. Seemed to be very successful. They're like, oh, yeah, Microsoft found out that they were using pirated software. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, they got fined for $100,000. Right? And again, imagine that. Imagine like you're going along and you're like you're skirting around the edges. You're like, oh, I'll just use the pirated software here. Oh, I'll just do here. Oh, and then you get audited or something happens, and all of a sudden, you have a $100,000 fine. And again, that's one thing like a lot of people don't realize, like with the pirated software thing. Like Microsoft actually has, or it had, like a whistleblower type program where if you told Microsoft of companies that were like massively infringing pirated software, and Microsoft went after them, like you got a bounty for doing that. So do you want to be that company? Do you want to build up a 20-person company using all kinds of pirated software and then have to worry that one of your pissed off employees is going to narc you to Microsoft? And again, like I say, everybody's always worried, like with these Chinese hackers all parachuting into their server rooms and destroying things. No, it's gonna be the pissed off secretary. It's gonna be that secretary that's come in like 3 hours late, 5 days in a row, that you finally fire, And then they feel like they've been wrong because you should understand why they came in 3 hours late and still expected their full pay. And then they go to Microsoft and narc on you, right? But again, that's the thing, is a lot of people, like I say, this modern world, they don't really contemplate what they're doing. Like again, like I say, when I built Everyman IT, I actually went through and I had a copy back when I had my own servers. I actually had a copy of the licensing agreement for H.264. Like, what a lot of people don't realize is like the codecs that are used for sending and streaming video. Those are actually licensed products, right? I forget who owns the H.264 codec, but there's a company that owns the H.264 codec. And so I spent a couple of days actually researching the whole issue with the H.264 codec and who was supposed to pay for what, because there was supposed to be a royalty payment. And so like at that time, one of the things I always kept in mind when I had my own servers is that I think it was until 2014, and this is an important thing to realize, like with the H.264 codec, they were waiving royalty fees until 2014, as I recall, give or take, right? The idea was they don't want to charge people while nobody's using the technology, and then once people are using the technology, then they want to start charging people. I'm not sure how it all worked out, because by 2014 I had migrated to other people's systems, so I didn't worry about it. But that was a real issue there, with like who had to pay what for the codec. So imagine if you built your entire infrastructure using a specific piece of technology, and then you find out that you should have been paying royalty payments for the past 2 years, and then you find out that the royalty payments are like fucking huge, right? Then you can run into issues with that kind of stuff. And those are the kind of things that you should be thinking about, like as you build your business, or even things like with Uber. You know, so we have all these issues with this gig economy. So whether it's Uber or TaskRabbit or any of that kind of stuff. And one of the questions you have to ask yourself is let's say you do TaskRabbit. I think TaskRabbit's still around. So TaskRabbit is where people say, I need a bookshelf moved and I'm willing to spend $25 or this, that, or the other thing, right? And so you go and you're like, I'll do that for $25. But here's the issue. You are an independent contractor. As I recall, you are an independent contractor. So let's take TaskRabbit out of it. Let's say it's a gig economy thing. But anyways, so you're an independent contractor that uses the platform in order to get gigs. So you then go and you then move the bookshelf. Well, while you're moving the bookshelf, you trip and the bookshelf falls on the nice little old lady. Oh no, this is horrible. It's so sad. I so apologize. I will get you the phone number to TaskRabbit or to the gig company, and they will try to make this right. And then the platform says, why are you giving them our phone number? You're an independent contractor. And you're like, what do you mean? While I was doing work for your platform, this happened, and therefore you're liable for it. And they say, no, you didn't work for us. If you are an employee of us, we would be liable for your action. You're not an employee of us. We are a platform that connects you with customers. Therefore, you're liable for what happened. And now here's the thing. Like let's imagine that you're out there and you've got a house and you've got a car and you're like a lot of people. You're trying to get some extra money for your kid's college fund. And what a lot of people do. So you've got 2 cars, you've got a nice house, you're just trying to get, holy crap, kids' college fund. Hey, you make $25 for moving a couple of bookshelves every night, extra $500 a week, that's nice. And then you trip and you drop the bookshelf on that kind old lady, squish her like a damn bug, and then her family then sues you because you're the independent contractor. And you were just in this for an extra $500 or however much per week. You didn't really need the money. You didn't really ever think of liability. You just thought, hey, this will be an easy way to make money. And now all of a sudden, they're suing you for your house. They're suing you for your cars. They're suing you for however much money is in your bank account. And now it's not about whether or not your kid can go to the college that they want. It's whether or not they're going to be working at Royal Farms or McDonald's, just so that everybody can try to pay the rent from this lawsuit. And again, that's the kind of thing do you really think about? Right? Do you know the liability that you're getting yourself into in this modern world? If you were a driver for Uber, or if you're a driver for Lyft, or if you're a driver for any of these companies, and you get into an accident and something happens to the people in your car, how much liability do you have? And again, and here's the issue. A lot of people say, Eli, Uber's doing hundreds of thousands of drives every day. Obviously people aren't getting sued left and right. So look, you're just being your normal pessimistic self yet again. You're just throwing out stupid ideas. They're not really real. But again, how many of those drivers are kind of like how I was years ago, where they're basically turn-ups? They make their $20 an hour, yay! But even if you sued them, all right, you're not even going to recover the money. But here's the thing, again, what if you are like I know there's a founder, a CEO founder of a startup company who was still doing Uber simply because he found it was a good way to talk to normal people. And again, it's a good idea, actually. Like, when you're a founder or you're the owner of a company, you really can get into echo chamber. Like, I talk about, like, startup echo chamber. And like I say, the founder's echo chamber is, like, exponentially worse. And so one of the things that he decided to do is he was going to do Uber so he could talk to normal people and see what the hell normal people wanted. Again, great idea. Well, here's the thing. If most Uber drivers are single parent moms, or are barely paying their way through college or whatever else, and they get into a car accident, is it really worth lawyers going after them? Right? They take the insurance money that they get, and they go after Uber a little bit. But, on the other hand, if you're that startup founder and you got your rounds of funding and you've been able to cash out and you've got $4 million in the bank, have you thought about how much liability you're actually in driving for Uber or doing one of these other things? Do you think about that? All right. Again, like with Airbnb, like things to be thinking about. Like with this new is there's this whole thing with it should be unconstitutional. It's absolutely horrible. But basically, property used in the commission of a crime, it can be confiscated by the government. Absolutely horrible. Absolutely. This is one of those things. Screw. There is no police officer out there that can tell me this is right. Completely wrong, but it is there. So here's a question. If you rent your condo or your house or whatever on Airbnb for a week and somebody uses it to start selling crack cocaine and then they get raided, can the government then take your house? And again, there's all of these liability issues that I think people really are not thinking about and they're not considering, and it's coasting along. But what I would argue is you're going to start to see more and more of what's going on in the YouTube world, where a lot of things have slid by because it hasn't been worth anybody's time or energy to go after it. And now it's starting to become worth the time and energy to go after these people. And I think things are going to change. Right? So this is just something to be thinking about with you and the modern world and all that kind of stuff. Is do you know the... do you realize the liability you may be putting yourself in? Again, when it was just me running around, Eli, a computer guy, I didn't have an LLC. All right, back when it was just me running around, I did not have an LLC. Because again, at the time, I could make a lot of money very quickly, but then I spent the money. Money comes in, money goes out. So again, if you end up suing me, you got what's left in my bank account, right? not that worried. But that's why, I created the LLC, and I got the lawyers, and I got errors and omissions insurance. A lot of you folks should get, and I got liability insurance, and I got all these other things, because when I got married and had a house and had cars and all those other things, that fundamentally changes how you interact with the world. Because if I trip and I drop a server and that destroys the database with all the information, and it's just me, the company owner has to think, is it really worth the time and energy to sue just me? This is some geek that's, whatever. On the other hand, you got a house, and you got this, and you got that, and you got the other thing. Maybe it is worth the time and energy to go after the person, right? Something to think about. That is my thought for today. Because like I say, seeing H3H3 and them getting sued by this person, and you know what? And I have to say, I saw H3H3's complaint, but again, I do have to say, I know I'll get a lot of hate from people. Well, thankfully, I won't get a lot of hate from you folks. And since this isn't in like most of those where the fair use people won't even find this, so I shouldn't get too much hate. But I do have to say, like, I was watching, like I say, the guy Ethan, and I like the guy Ethan, the guy Ethan, the woman or whatever. They seem like really nice people. But when they were sitting there and they were arguing their point for fair use, I really have to say, I don't think I buy it. Like when you sit there and you hear their argument, if we only use 3 minutes out of like an 11 or 14 minute video or whatever, but it's like, just because you only used 3 minutes, that doesn't mean that was fair use. Did you use the minimum that was required to get your point across? And that's one thing, like I say, with this whole fair use thing, they don't bring up. They don't say, we made sure to cut the thing very close, or we used still images, or their whole argument is we only used 3 minutes out of a 11 or 14 minute video, therefore it should be fair use. And I'm sitting there and thinking, that doesn't sound like a good legal argument. Again, if you actually look at the legal complaint from the other people, and that looks absurd too. Again, it all looks a little absurd. But again, the question is again, I think more and more, like I say, YouTubers are going to be targets, and then more and more other folks are going to be targets. Again, you got to think about things like insurance fraud, or fraud. So if you have a normal business, fraud is something that you have to worry about. And that's one of the questions. So again, like I say, with people doing the gig economy, doing TaskRabbit, what happens if you go to do a job for a nice old lady, and then you're doing the work and she's talking to you. She's like, oh yeah, so what's your story? And you're like, oh, well, actually, I'm a professional, I'm an IT professional. So all day, I work on computers. Oh, is that a good job? Yeah, actually, it's a really good job. I'm just doing this so that I can pay for my kid to go to school and all that kind of stuff. This is a little bit extra money. Oh, okay. And then you go away. And then she calls the police. I was just molested by this computer person who came here to move my bookshelf. And you're like, what? Right? But again, think about it. It's a whole new world of that kind of stuff. And again, you're not an employee. Liability insurance doesn't cover you. All these other insurances don't necessarily cover you. The platform may or may not give a damn. And you may just be swinging in the wind, right? So again, do you fully understand what you're getting yourself into? Because I think a lot of folks don't. Like I say, like talking about that, like I say, with the fraud thing. Have you thought about that with the gig economy? Have you thought about that? Right? Oh, yes, this modern world, this scary modern world. So just something to think about there. Again, if you haven't looked at the H3H3 getting sued, go take a look at it. Again, whether or not you agree with them, whether or not whatever, just think about it. Because Philip DeFranco, he did a video about it yesterday, and he's done this whole GoFundMe campaign, and they're arguing for the whole fair use thing. But I have to say, I think most YouTube content creators don't grasp fair use. I really think they don't grab. And again, this is one of the problems with echo chambers. And again, this is where, like with Philip DeFranco, I mean, Spaghetti Monster, bless him for defending people that he wants to defend, and Spaghetti Monster, bless him for trying to defend fair use. But again, when you see Philip DeFranco come out and say this is horrible and this is against fair use, and then he does a GoFundMe campaign and they get $60,000, it can start to get the echo chamber of what they did was right. What they did was legal. What they did, they should not be liable for. And again, even looking at what they put out there, I'm not sure I would buy that. So, just something to think about. But anyways, I'm very happy. I wasn't sure sitting here in my little room whether or not I would be able to give you guys, you folks. We have 4 women out there. We have 4 women out of 6,000 subscribers. We've got our 4 women, folks. So I was a little worried. I want to be able to give you folks the full hour. But we gave you an hour. You come here, you watch your little 15-second commercial, and I give you an hour. Though if you would like to give some Patreon money, I'm not joking about this Patreon thing. I don't get this with Patreon. How is it grade A under A? Last time I checked, here, let's look. Okay, let's look grade A under A. So let's go to Patreon. So this is what I don't understand. Patreon, right? And then we go, look, I'm getting $78 per month right now. We have 26 Patreon patrons. Yay! So we're going to go to grade A under A, right? And this is what I don't understand. $7,336 per month. Okay, this is somebody that has grade A under A. This is somebody who has, on YouTube, this is somebody who has 2.1, almost 2.2 million subscribers. Literally, videos. He did a video that came out 2 days ago, has 1.6 million views. So I don't know what grade A's CPM is, but whatever the hell his CPM is, 2 days ago already has 1.6 million views. So he's got to be doing at least okay simply from ad revenue. And he gets $7,300 per month Patreon. And I've got my 70. So I just want to point this out. I just want to point this thing out here. Let's zoom. Can I zoom in? I can't zoom in. But I just want, because there are a lot of people out there that are like, Eli, how dare you even bring up Patreon? I can't believe you would bring up Patreon. That's just such a lowly, stinky thing to do. And I just want to say, I am showing you folks the world. I am telling you about philosophy and ways to make money and technology and all that kind of stuff with the hope that it will make your lives better. Grade A under A, I love his content. I love his content dearly. But the mother fudder, he makes stick figures and screams about things. And he gets $7,300. And yet, the ironic thing is, people are like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, Eli. Of course, grade A under A. Of course he should make $7,300 off of Patreon alone. But, because he's doing stick figures. So I'm just saying. I'm not like bitter or anything. I'm not bitter. I'm just saying. Just saying if anybody likes to chip into the Patreon thing. $7,300 grade A gets. What the hell? Again, on top of 2.2 million subscribers. And again, I don't care what his CPM is. His CPM could damn near be 50 cents and he's still making bank off of ad revenue. But anyways, this is life. I give people my soul. He gives them stick figures. Apparently, if you want to make that, I think that's a good lesson in life. If you want to make a lot of money, do stick figures. That's the way to go. But anyways, Patreon, link below if anybody wants to go on. Because again, like I say, just saying. Let's say once this is all going, it's thousands of dollars a month just in break-even point. So just saying. Oh, and the final thing, some people have been asking or whatever about the whole stereo thing. So the microphone I use on this camera is stereo, and the question is can it be mono? Because as I move the camera around, if you're listening to this with earphones, it screws with you. And the issue is no, I can't actually change the stereo to mono through the camera itself. In order to change it to mono, I would have to put it into Final Cut Pro and then re-encode it, which would take like an hour or whatever, and then be able to upload it. And so that's not going to happen. You're going to get this in stereo, because it's not it's an external microphone, but it's not quite the external microphone you're thinking about. It's not like a microphone I can really do a lot with. It's like one of these hot shoe microphones. So basically I plug it in, and then it is what it is. It like literally has one switch on it. I can either say normal or low, and that's the sum total of the options it gives me. So I can't do like the whole mono or stereo thing on it. So if you want to listen to this in mono, I will say you should be able to listen to it to mono, I think. Like I looked at iPhone settings. If you go to iPhone General Accessibility, you can actually select mono there. So I think you should have mono options. If like mono is really important to you, you should have mono options. But otherwise it's going to be stereo. Just how it is. The other thing too is I kind of like the stereo, because especially you got like when I'm out actually walking or whatever, you got like the little birds, you got the bees, you got the animals, you got the critters, and like the stereo gives like that sensation of movement. So I kind of like the stereo, honestly. And it's gonna stay anyway. It's kind of like the whole gimbal thing. It's like, I understand what a gimbal is. Do you understand what a gimbal is? Not getting a fucking gimbal. I have heard your request for a gimbal, and it's been denied. So, anyways, with that, I should go, because it is now an hour and 15 minutes, and it's almost 7 o'clock, and I still haven't had dinner yet. So I will see you folks tomorrow.